and welcome to another Arsecast Extra, as always, with James from Gunnerblog, and for the second time in a row in the same room as James from Gunnerblog. James, a goodly city of brotherly, lovely morning to you.
Oh, thanks, man.
It came out very well, actually.
Yeah, it did. We didn't even practice it. We are in the same room, but in a different state, a different time zone.
Yes, we crossed the time zones yesterday. It's a weird one, you know, you leave LA at some time and then you arrive in Philadelphia at another time and the entire day is gone, but it only feels like you've been on a plane a few hours.
Yeah, and I need to thank Elliot from the Arsenal Vision Pod for explaining all the time zones to me.
Oh, yeah.
What was it?
Eastern, Central, Mountain, and Pacific.
Yeah, and lake time.
And, yeah, Valley time.
Yeah. Mountain time. My goal in my life is at some point to get on mountain time.
Yeah.
I think until I've been on mountain time, I haven't lived.
According to Elliot, it's only in like one slice of Arizona.
Okay.
One particular mountain.
We'll do it. We'll do a live pod there.
That's what we should do.
But yeah, we landed when? Last night?
I think so, yeah. I assume so, because we're here and it's morning and I've slept, so it must have been last night. Probably around 7:30, got into the city and checked into the hotel and convened for a couple of drinks, which was nice.
Did. Celebrating Kaya Karnak's birthday. Happy birthday, Kaya.
Again.
Disgustingly young.
He really is. He said to me the other day, we were sitting having a drink, and he said, it's my birthday on Monday and getting old now, 27.
Sickening.
I said, shut the fuck up.
Yeah. You punched that guy right out.
He was spark out. Flat in his back. He's a big guy too. I was proud of that one.
Yeah, well, he should be. So we had some drinks, and now today is Tuesday.
Yeah.
Basically, what's happening here is I'm just trying to remind myself what day it is.
And where you are.
And where I am.
Yeah, and who you're with.
This is all for my benefit.
We're in I'm actually, completely coincidentally, staying in the same hotel as the team.
Yeah.
So this morning, I got into the lift to go downstairs to take a wander around Philadelphia and get some coffee and a donut at Federal Donuts, I have to say. Very delicious donut.
Wow.
So got in the lift, stopped the next floor down, and it was Kate, who's head of comms here at Arsenal. So I was chatting with her. And then the lift stopped on the next floor, and in walks Jakub Kiwior. And I was like, oh, he's a well-put-together young man. Yet not as big as you would think.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I didn't. Sometimes you can stand next to a footballer and feel, or a professional athlete, and feel very small.
Yeah.
I didn't feel very small.
So you think you could take him, is what you're saying?
Well, I suspect... In what? Like if it's a race, he's definitely going to win.
Yeah, but like a mud wrestle?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah,
probably.
I'm backing you.
I'm a biter as well, you know. So the lift stopped then on the next floor, or the floor after that, and in walked Josh Nichols and Ayden Heaven.
Wow.
Now, Ayden Heaven, he's got me beat. Really? All ends up.
Really?
He is a very imposing young man, I have to say.
For 17 as well.
For 17. And... yeah, we travelled down, and then a few minutes ago I was in the lift going down to meet you, and Theo Walcott got into the lift.
Wow.
And he said, I've got a bone to pick with you. No, he didn't.
He's not read the books, fortunately.
Yeah.
He's not trawled through the archives.
No.
Wow, that's very exciting. Yeah, Aiden Heaven, he is a big guy. But and when you think he's probably got some... growing to do, if not in terms of height, but maybe filling out.
Filling out for sure, yeah.
Yeah.
He, I mean, we might as well talk about him, because I think he was an interesting aspect to the game that we saw at the weekend. Obviously, we haven't done a podcast since the Manchester United game. We're not necessarily ones for the most instant reaction when it comes to... If you want instant reaction, Elliot and Clive recorded an instant reaction on Elliot's phone in the car on the way back from SoFi before we headed out on Saturday night.
It would never happen under you.
No, absolutely not. I have too much respect for the other people in the car to inflict my nonsense on them.
I was going to say too much respect for the medium of podcasting.
Well, that too.
Did you shout it? Were you in the background? I've not listened to it.
I booed when he gave Eddie Nketiah a stock falling.
Yeah,
it
rightly
felt
so.
an unnecessary stock falling to me, so I booed.
Good,
but that was it. That was it.
I boo often when I'm listening at home. Just screaming boo as I walk down the street with my headphones in. So let's talk about it. I mean, the team for United was stronger, would we say, than the Bournemouth game?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure, because you had people like Zinchenko, like Jorginho in the starting 11, Gabriel Jesus in the starting 11 as well, Leandro Trossard. So, yeah, it was stronger, but there were still a couple of young players in there. Ethan Nwaneri started in midfield, and Ayden Heaven, who we've already mentioned, started at the back and was involved in a moment, I guess, when Rasmus Højlund went through and scored a goal. I thought this was interesting. I was watching, what was happening on the pitch after the United goal, and they were obviously off celebrating, so I wasn't watching what they were doing. But as the players sort of reconvened in the middle of the pitch, Jorginho went over and just had a couple of words and was chatting to Ayden Heaven. And a moment after that, Zinchenko came over and had a word and was just sort of explaining a couple of things here and there. And I know sometimes, people, they might scoff a little bit at this, player's old or his experience is valuable or whatever. But I just thought that was very interesting to see those two senior pros come over to this young guy who's made a mistake, and it happens. It's not the worst thing in the world. He got left behind a little bit, and, that's a thing that he will learn from. But those two guys are coming over and offering advice and offering encouragement. And whether it had any part in the rest of his performance, I don't know. But I liked seeing that from those two guys.
Yeah, definitely. That's part of their seniority is having that role in the squad. And I think that moment, as a 17-year-old central defender, how many times has Ayden Heaven played up against someone who has that physicality that Højlund has, the pace and the power and the size as well? He did get monstered a little bit on that goal. And it would be easy for a young player to crumble in that situation. Big stadium, 60,000 people there, Manchester United, fair bit of scrutiny. Everything you do on the pitch is amplified by a big 360-degree screen directly above you.
Yeah.
Crazy stadium, by the way.
Yeah. What did you think? I spoke about it obviously last year, so I don't want to say again just how amazing it is, but it is kind of breathtaking when you're there for the first time.
It is, and actually, listen, I love the Emirates, but I said this to you last night. It makes you almost regret, in some ways, that the timing of the Emirates. Because I think if we had been building it at a time where maybe, obviously the technology was a bit further advanced, but maybe even at a time when we were owned by the Cronkies, I think it might have been a sort of very different beast. It's crazy how much in 20 years the change in what you can do has come about. To be honest, I know it's a time where things between fans and the owners are quite cordial. So maybe what I'm about to say is a product of that. But when I looked around at it, I felt very impressed by what KSE have done there. It is kind of an extraordinary feat of engineering and ambition and money. So much money.
$5.5 billion.
All private money too.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. That... When you say it out loud, 5.5, but it is just such an extraordinary amount of money. So, you do want something extraordinary when you have that kind of outlay. I was talking to somebody at the game, and our friend Scarpy, who was telling me that for the Olympics, they're going to turn the pitch into the swimming arena. They're going to basically construct swimming pools, and I was like, this hurts my head. Thinking about how they're going to do that. Like, you look at the screen, and he explained to me in very detailed terms how that screen was constructed and mounted and all that. But it's still, when you look at it, it's so disconcerting. Like, it's so amazing. Sometimes you're sitting there watching the game on the screen, and you go, "What the fuck am I doing?" The pitch is right there.
I do think it is too nice for football. That is one thing I would say. It's almost too plush, too comfortable.
Yeah.
And the access to the screen is so good that I think you're right. You almost your eye gets drawn to it away from the pitch. But yeah, fascinating to see what they do with it for the Olympics. And they've got the World Cup to come, where I think they're going to have to make the pitch slightly bigger to meet FIFA regulations. But extraordinary stadium, I must say, and I was pleased to visit for the first time. But coming back to Ayden Heaven, I think the way he recovered his composure after that, maybe with the help of Jorginho and Zinchenko, as you suggest, was really impressive.
Yes, I thought the fact that he was getting on the ball in midfield, he wasn't taking the easy option at times. He pulled off a couple of really snazzy moves, I guess you might call them. And, you could go into your shell a little bit. You could play it safe, but that showed a lot of personality, I think. And look, I'm not saying Ayden Heaven is, the next William Saliba or anything like that. But when you're trying to assess the qualities of a player, you look at all these things, don't you? Not just like their passing accuracy, not just their stats, but you look at how they react maybe to a little bit of adversity. And I thought his reaction to that was very, very promising.
Yeah, and he showed the positive side about his game. He that's what he's known for. He's really good on the ball. He has played in midfield a bit. So he'll go through, I'm sure, that Arsenal rite of passage where at some point the fans want him to become a DM. But I am intrigued to see how they handle him this season because he's 17 and ordinarily you'd think, his path to the first team's quite blocked. I don't know if you know, Andrew, but we've actually just signed another left-sided defender.
I did notice that, yeah, I did hear.
So ordinarily you'd think, you send him out on loan. But at 17, I think that's a bit of a risk. Like, I think sending a 17-year-old centre-back to play in League One.
Yeah, go to Plymouth or something.
Yeah, I'm not convinced that's necessarily the best thing for his development. So
I agree, yeah.
We'll have to wait and see. I imagine he might stick around and maybe training with Arsenal first-team players on a kind of semi-regular basis. That might be the best next step for him.
Yeah. So we've mentioned Nwaneri, and he obviously got the assist for Gabriels Jesus to score the goal. There were a couple of moments, I think, for Jesus earlier in the game. One where he robbed, Lenny. How can you be taken seriously as a footballer if your name is Lenny? And apologies to any Lennys who are out there, but none of you are top flight footballers. So it's not that.
Of mice and men vibes to it, inevitably.
Yeah.
He went off injured, of course.
So did Højlund. Yeah.
And that really changed the game. I thought United started surprisingly well in that first 10 minutes. I think they probably had a team that more resembled their first choice team than we did out at the start. But they had a couple of youngsters in still. They started well, they went ahead, but when they lost those two players to injury, they didn't really...
No, they didn't recover, did they?
No, and they didn't carry much threat going forward.
Yeah.
Which helped us.
What did you make of Gabriels Jesus? Because this is a very important pre-season for him, having missed pre-season last year and then struggled with injury throughout the season. He looks very sharp. He looks like he's determined to get back to the level that we all hope he can get back to. The goal was nice. There were opportunities. He was working hard. He was popping up here, there, and everywhere. I don't know quite whether all of that was within the structures that Mikel Arteta wanted, but it's good to see him physically able to put himself about in that way.
Absolutely. And we spoke with Mikel Arteta afterwards. He did a press conference. Disappointingly, Erik ten Hag did not, because I would have loved to have heard his thoughts on Arsenal's seemingly quite offside goal. But Arteta spoke about Jesus, and what he said was fascinating, because I think when we speak about Jesus, we've been more saying things like, well, he's been a bit unlucky with injury. We hope he can stay fit. And Arteta, he doesn't seem to have much room for luck in his analysis, because he was all about the reason Jesus looks good now is because he's made changes in his life. And he wouldn't go into detail on that.
Right.
But he kind of said he's made alterations to the way he approaches his profession, approaches the game.
That's so interesting to think about, isn't it? Because he spent so many years at Manchester City, and I know he was younger then, but I'm guessing that, to be properly part of a Pep Guardiola team, you have to not just play a certain way, but live a certain way. So I wonder, what it is.
Absolutely. Like Jesus had a personal strength and conditioning coach that he worked with for 5 years while he was at City, and he brought him with him to Arsenal as well. But they had stopped working together. I don't know what he put in place of that.
Yeah.
Maybe the club the club often have a perspective on the individual, what's the word, experts maybe?
Oh, yeah.
That the players take on, and they don't always approve. So maybe that could be part of it. It might be as simple as things like diet, sleep, all those extra things outside of the game. But basically, Mikel, I don't think he was implying there was any kind of unprofessionalism from Gabriels.
No, I know. Yeah.
I think it was more just some tweaks have been made, presumably in accordance with what the club have recommended. And Mikel said that's the platform that you need to build performance.
Yeah.
And Jesus does look sharp. He does look hungry. He does look like he's got a bit of a point to prove. I mean, effectively, he lost his place in the starting 11 last season.
Yeah.
To Kai Havertz. And his Premier League record, it was 4 goals in 27 appearances. I think even for someone whose finishing has been a bit inconsistent throughout their career, he will have been really disappointed by that.
Yeah.
So a fit, motivated Gabriels Jesus, I think probably most of us agree, is better than many of the strikers we could buy on the market.
Yeah, I think so. And again, the versatility that he brings to the team in that he can play left, he can play right as well. So there's no question in my mind that having a properly fit Gabriels Jesus available to us makes us a stronger outfit for next season. Similarly, another player who perhaps underperformed based on expectations last year was Gabriel Martinelli, and he came on in the second half. To be fair, Manchester United made about 9 changes at halftime, and I hadn't heard of any of them. Or maybe I heard of Anthony, I think, but that was about it. I've tried to forget Anthony as much as possible. But again, Martinelli looked really sharp. First thing he did basically was run at the right back, and I don't know who it was, but he roasted him, absolutely skinned him, and I think that gave him a little bit of confidence, to go on and get his goal. But he's another one, isn't he, who has probably suffered and struggled a little bit with injury and how injury affects your form and your rhythm. So pre-season, having just arrived back, by the way, because he was at Copa America, having just arrived back last week into the team, scores a goal, confidence boost, and that's a player that I think could be really, really important for us.
Oh, yeah. I think he'd done 1 full session with the team, training. Came straight into the game, scored a great goal. The United defence was absolutely all over the place. I think we should probably add. But I think Jesus and Martinelli, something Mikel keeps repeating in press conferences at the moment, usually when he's asked about transfers, is my job is to get the maximum out of the players I already have at my disposal.
Yeah.
And they're the two, aren't they, where you'd say there's maybe the greatest potential for them to improve on what they offered last season. In terms of goals, in terms of assists, in terms of general contribution to the team. If we can wring more out of those guys, then that will help us significantly.
Yeah. What else on the game? United had a goal disallowed in injury time there was a foul on the keeper.
That's right, yeah. But, more cameos for young players. A lot of people, Nwaneri had a good first half. A lot of people were impressed with Salah-Eddin in the second half.
I was too, actually. I thought he was very, very tidy and composed and took responsibility in midfield.
Very confident young man.
Yeah.
And a little bit older than some of the others. I think he's 20 maybe. Mm-hmm. He's been out on loan. He's played grown-up football. Yeah,
did he have an injury, I think?
Yeah.
Had a bad injury.
He's had a couple, I think. But, yeah, I think he was in the Netherlands last season.
What, as a young player, what do you see as like the pathway for him, or what... if you talked about Ayden Heaven not necessarily being ready to go out on loan, someone like Salah-Eddin, is it a loan season for him that, get out there and play, and whether it's enough to make it at Arsenal, we'll have to wait and see. But it could be a case that if he gets the right kind of loan move this season, we're talking about maybe selling a player next summer and, using that loan market and using the market in a way that we can reinvest that money if money comes in for him.
Yeah, kind of the Mika Biereth model. And he was brought into the club at a similar time. The academy recruitment team at that point in time, that was part of the project. Can we get in 17, 18-year-olds who we think might have a chance at the first team, but also could be assets further down the line. So I think that is the likeliest outcome. You know, when you think about it, probably Nwaneri's ahead of him in the pecking order, maybe even someone like Lewis Skelly, and they're 3 years younger. So I think his long-term prospects at Arsenal aren't the best, but I think he'll have a good career. I don't know off the top of my head what his contract situation is, but I could see a scenario where Arsenal send him on loan and bump an extra year on his deal at the same time, just to give themselves that bit of protection. And, you know, if he does fantastic and he comes back, great. But if not, you've got a player there who, you know, might bring in a few million quid.
There was a penalty shootout, as there was in the game against Bournemouth. The sort of US Stadium razzmatazz was going on in the penalty shootout. The sideline guy was announcing each player as they came up to take their penalties.
I wanted them to do the old MLS penalties. You know?
Run from the halfway line.
That's what I want.
That would have been good.
Pure entertainment.
That would have been good. Not necessarily useful in any way for the season that lies ahead.
No, not at all.
But good entertainment, yeah.
It's useful for like a 1 in a million chance that
Jakub Kiwior is running through on goal with just the keeper to beat.
Against Spurs' high line, maybe. That's the only time I can foresee it.
Yeah.
But, we unfortunately, the penalty shootout went United's way this time. Penalty saving hero from the Bournemouth game, Carl Hayne, couldn't keep out United's spot kicks, and there were a couple of misses from Arsenal. Kai Havertz had his effort saved, and Kiwior himself
put it wide.
Yeah, but some interesting antics weren't there from Andre Onana.
I thought that was actually really good fun. It was very entertaining because we were sitting quite close to where the penalties were being taken. I particularly enjoyed him standing to one side of his goal and gesturing to Gabriel, like, put it there, put it there, put it there. You know, go on, I dare you, put it there, put it there. And then Gabriel just absolutely twatted his penalty into exactly where Onana was pointing, and then gave him the old, you talk too much sort of hand gesture. It was funny.
I really enjoyed Gabriel's penalty, actually. I wasn't sure. As he was stepping up, I was like, I'm not sure how he's going to approach this.
There was part of me thought that despite the enormous size of the stadium, he might be the first man to kick a penalty out of the arena. But
to smash the screen. I had the same feeling. But he took a really nice penalty. I suppose we shouldn't be surprised. He is a goal-scoring centre-half.
That's true. Usually with his head, though.
Imagine
if he'd headed
just run up and dive.
Just run up and done a diving
Is there anything in the rules about that?
I don't know, actually.
Listen, we've been penalty pioneers in the past.
That's true.
We could see that in future. But United won the shootout, but frankly, it doesn't matter. We won the game.
We won the game, and that's the most important thing. So, what else to say?
No injuries. I mean, United, for them, the story coming out of the game was Lenny and Højlund.
Højlund, with a hamstring for Højlund, is it?
It looks like it, and a foot injury for Euro. So, quite bad injuries to two quite important players. And we came through, touch wood, pretty scot-free.
Yeah.
That's the important thing, and more good experience for young players and minutes in the legs of some of those guys who've returned later. You know, we saw Havertz on, we saw Gabriel on, we spoke about Martinelli. The squad is beginning to look more like itself now.
He can pick a different, slightly stronger team for the game here on Wednesday against Liverpool.
Yeah, he can. Yeah. I mean, I imagine it will be the strongest so far. I think that's the kind of the progression, you know. People like Havertz and Kiwior, they might be in contention to begin this one, you'd think.
Yes, and we'll have to wait and see, obviously, what kind of team Liverpool pick. I don't know. I wonder, is there any communication between managers?
Like, what are you going to do?
Yeah, but you know what I mean? Like, it might be useful for both of them to sort of say, well, look, we're going to do 75% senior, 25% junior, and then, you know, in both of the games so far, so many changes have been made. It just gets like nobody knows where anyone is anymore, and there's all this space to play around in. But I do wonder if, as a useful exercise in communication, you'd find out from Liverpool, from Mikel Arteta, whether he talks to Arne Slot, I don't know. I mean, maybe Arteta would probably just say, "Oh no, we're going to pick all the young players."
He'd like to say, "You'll see when I announce the lineup."
Yeah.
You know,
yeah,
so like he does in press conferences. It's a bit like how before the live show we did in LA, I texted you to be like, are you going to wear shorts or trousers?
That's it.
It's that, but the Football Manager version.
I went with shorts. You went with trousers.
And that's, I guess, why we make a perfect pair.
That's it.
But yeah, looking forward to that. Lincoln Financial Field as well. It's another big old stadium.
I don't know if we're going to get a penalty shootout situation in this game.
No, Mikel loves them, I think. He thinks it's a good test for the players. But obviously, both teams need to consent to it. So I don't think we'll be seeing those goal line antics again. No Bruce Grobbelaar.
From Alisson or
Caoimhín
Kelleher or whoever it might be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
To be fair, I don't want to take a penalty against Alisson, so maybe it's for the best.
You wouldn't back yourself, no?
I've taken a couple of penalties at the Emirates. I've been lucky enough to play in like some of the end of season 5-a-side games, and when I've not been playing, I've sort of wandered down in front of the clock end, and so 2 years ago, I stepped up. And I was like, I'm going to take a penalty. I think Charles Watts was in goal. I might have told this story before, but there's an update to it. And I ran up at the clock and I was like, this is the moment, and absolutely skied it. We spoke about Gabriel's possible penalty. I basically took that penalty, almost hit the clock, and it has haunted me ever since. And then only a couple of months ago, I found myself back at the Emirates, back at the clock end.
Who was in goal?
I'm not sure. I don't think I knew the guy. And I stepped up and I thought, this is my chance for redemption.
And?
Exactly the same result.
No, James, come on.
They gave me another one. They were like, have another one, and I scored it. But it didn't feel the same.
Third time
it's like, scoring in the shootout, having missed in the 90 minutes. It's like you're still thinking about the miss.
So you're still thinking of the one you missed.
So actually, I wouldn't really trouble Alisson, I wouldn't think.
Right.
He could just
stand there.
Chill out, relax. Yeah.
Read the paper.
I'll take care of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, looking forward to it nonetheless. It should be fun. And Arsenal Philly are a big old support group.
Yes. We're obviously doing the event tonight with Jacob and Poorly Drawn Arsenal. Mm-hmm. I think it's World Cafe Live.
Yes. It's those three words in some order. I think you've got the right order.
World Cafe Live. I mean, why not just World Cafe? Or is it always on?
And it's live.
And it's live. World Cafe. So we're looking forward to that and meeting many of you guys who are here, not just from Philadelphia, but who've come to Philadelphia for the game and for the festivities and all the bits and bobs that are going on today and tomorrow. So that should be good. I haven't really seen a lot of Philadelphia as it stands because we only got here last night. It's morning. I had a little wander around, went to Rittenhouse Square, which is a nice, lovely park. Some very interesting buildings in the few blocks that I've seen. So I am kind of looking forward to having a wander around and seeing a bit more of the city.
You're going to run up the rocky steps?
100%. You're going to take me there right after this. And you're going to film it.
I'm going to sing da-na-na while you do it.
Yeah. Awesome. And then I'll probably just hit one of the steps, re-break my little toe, and spend the next 4 days hobbling around in agony.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I don't really do energy drinks, but I'm in the middle of a can of Monster something.
How's that sitting with you?
I don't know. I'm not sure I feel myself. So we'll have to see how it goes. I mean, I could just not drink the rest of it and feel vaguely not myself, or drink all of it and then, go crazy.
The trouble is, it'll be all right for now. It's when the crash comes. Halfway up the rocky steps, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You just collapse.
Halfway back down. Why is this red-faced Irishman lying on the steps?
So the other thing that's happened, Andrew, which people are probably like, why have they not talked about it yet, is we've signed somebody.
Yes, we've finally made a real signing. David Raya does not count.
No.
That's not a new signing. But Riccardo Calafiori is absolutely 100% like a new signing. He's here and he's beautiful.
He is.
He's a very striking man. I saw him downstairs.
Really?
Yeah.
Did he have an aura?
Yes. An aura and remarkable hair.
Beautiful hair.
Remarkable hair. And for us two in particular, that's... it's bittersweet, isn't it?
There's a lot to be envious of there, I would say. And he's a tall man.
Cheekbones like geometry, as the song goes.
Absolutely. He's beautiful and he's ours. So he arrived kind of with the team on Sunday, flew out from London, having done his medical, and was announced, I think, literally minutes before Arsenal's open training session on Monday afternoon, as it was.
Yeah.
So yeah, he trained alone, did his little jogs and stretches and things like that. And he's here, and he's apparently got a chance of involvement on Wednesday.
I was going to ask you if there was, any chance he might play a little bit. I suspect he could be a second half sub, something like that. Come on for the last 15, 20 minutes, something like that.
Yeah, I think he's got a chance of playing kind of 10, 15 minutes, something like that. I think anything else would be maybe a bit reckless, given that he's just joined up. And I don't know whether he was training with Bologna. Like, obviously, we've had Jorginho for a week, but he was left out of their training camp squad, as I recall.
Yeah, probably could have been training on his own, though, I guess.
Yeah, so it all depends what kind of shape he's in. He looks to be in good shape, to my untrained eye.
Yes. I wouldn't have too many worries that he's been overdoing it on the rigatoni during the summer break.
So what can we say? I mean, fee up to a maximum of £42 million. Mm-hmm. I think the initial fee is in the 30s, somewhere mid-30s, and the rest is determined by add-ons.
You did a big piece on the signing and on the deal for The Athletic.
Yeah.
And, those stories that you hear about how a player only wants to come to one club, they tend to get trotted out when any player signs because you want to curry favour, and this has always been my. Remember how whenever Robbie Keane joined a club, the joke was like, "This finally, I'm joining the club of my childhood," etc., etc.
Yeah, he had a very nomadic childhood where he supported about 12 different teams. But I think, in this case, it's true. This is a player that a lot of clubs wanted, and it's a real coup for Arsenal. FC. I've used the word FC Bayern, I was going to say. Bayern Munich had followed him for a long time. Juventus were heavily interested. I think, towards the end of the negotiations, Arsenal thought that Real Madrid were entering the picture, and that sped things up because they didn't want to be competing with them, even though Calafiori had made it pretty clear it was Arsenal he wanted to join. I even heard a whisper that Chelsea were potentially looking to gazump the deal. Doesn't sound like them, does it?
No, that would be unusual for them to try and buy any player at all that we're potentially linked with.
But anyway, he's ended up with Arsenal, and part of that is down to his commitment. I mean, I think from his first conversations with Arteta and Edu, he was pretty set on where he wanted to play. Yeah,
I read the blog this morning. Tim Stillman was standing in and doing a fine job as always, as have Andrew and Lewis, so thank you guys. But Tim mentioned that Calafiori was at a game.
In January,
a Crystal Palace game, which is interesting, isn't it? And probably was able to, at that point, sort of just ghost in, watch a game, depending on where he watched it from, without too many people necessarily knowing who he was beyond, seasoned viewers of Serie A, perhaps.
Yeah,
I thought that was interesting. Just, okay, I'm here to have a look, see what it's about. What was the score of that, Chris? Was that the game?
That was 5-0, I think.
That was the 5-0 when Martinelli scored a couple of late ones, was it?
Yeah.
That was February, though, I think. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. But he speaks really good English as well.
That's ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
And not necessarily common for an Italian.
No.
So that's, again, to me, he suggests it's someone who's always wanted to play in England. I mean, he said it himself. Since he was 12 or 13 years old, he's viewed the Premier League as kind of his preferred destination. But for Arsenal to be that club now that people want to join, above others, and some of the names I've mentioned there, is testament, really, to the work that's been done.
It really is. Particularly, when Juventus are in for an Italian player, that tends to be what they choose.
Exactly.
But I'm sort of excited about the fact that I don't know if it's right to say that he's stepping outside of his comfort zone or a comfort zone, but it's, players come from all over the world to play in the Premier League, but Italian players in the Premier League the best ones tend to stay in Italy, or many of them tend to stay in Italy, so it's not the most common thing. So I'm really excited by the fact that he's got that kind of personality and, wants to test himself and wants to challenge himself and play, at the highest level in the Premier League, which hopefully he will do with us. There were some comments as well, weren't there, from Mikel Arteta about what we need at the back, and you, I think, have mentioned this before, where perhaps we got a bit lucky with Gabriel and William Saliba being available for all the games last season.
Absolutely.
And that was something Arteta referenced in his comments. We now have Calafiori, we've got Saliba, we've got Gabriel, we've got Jurriën Timber who can play at the centre of defence. There's Ben White, there's Tomiyasu, hopefully, who I hope will be back fairly shortly. There is a significant amount of defensive depth there. The return of Timber obviously is great, but now adding Calafiori to that, he's got a lot to work with back there and a lot of variety that he can choose, and he's got the ability and the quality, I think, to make decisions about certain games and certain teams, which I think is going to be another interesting aspect of this season, where the easiest thing to do is when you look at the fixture list or look at a game and say, well, I could make a change, but if I pick Saliba and Gabriel, I know what I'm getting.
Yeah.
Whereas if I pick Timber and Calafiori as a central defensive partnership, maybe a bit more challenging, and it'll probably work a little differently than that. It might be one or the other, but there is that option and that ability to do that.
Yeah, definitely. We've got that flexibility, that depth. And I think we can't afford to lean on Saliba and Gabriel like a crutch. We might lose one of those guys at some point in time. That's just something we have to face. So I think having the amount of options Arsenal have at their disposal now is really positive. And I think what you said about him being the kind of character who's quite intrepid, who's prepared to go and
intrepid,
test.
There's a great word.
Prepared to test himself in different environments. This was a guy, when he was about 20, actually left Syria and went to play for Basel, So he's already shown that in his young career. He is prepared to, move abroad and try new things. So hopefully that bodes well for his adaptation, Arsenal.
Yeah. Well, he's got years to come, hopefully, and it's good that he's here. The other deal that's sort of ongoing or close to completion is the departure, and we talked quite a lot, didn't we, the other day about Emile Smith Rowe and the decision, but it looks like that's going ahead. I just read before we started recording, there's a medical ongoing, so that's something that could be announced sooner rather than later, and
straight into Emile's hotel room, Calafiori, they boot.
Yeah,
one in,
one out, as you've said.
Yeah, I mean, do you think that's coincidence that those two deals have kind of closed at a similar time, or do you think they might be financially linked in some way?
I genuinely don't know. You're the guy maybe who might know that a little more than I do.
I think there might be a bit of a relationship. Yeah. I think in terms of sort of being prepared to go and spend the money for Calafiori, having the confidence to do that, when you've got...
I think we were always going to bring in Calafiori, though. I think that would have happened one way or the other, but perhaps then it gives you the final push, or maybe the liquidity to sort of go for the Mikel Merino kind of signing as well.
Yeah, perhaps so.
Because of the way that revenue or that money that comes in for Smith Rowe can go on the books in a particular way because he's an academy player.
That's true. It's not quite financially one in, one out. There's a real benefit to selling a player who, in accounting terms, has kind of cost you nothing.
Have you spoken, to fans over the last few days about the Smith Rowe thing?
Yeah.
It's quite interesting, because I think 99% of the conversations I've had are basically everybody saying, I'm absolutely gutted that he's going because of the place that he's sort of etched in our hearts, as the conversation we had the other day, but also they feel like it is the right thing for him, and it's the right thing for the club as well, but it's still one that's really bittersweet in a way.
Yeah, I mean, dare I say, it's been quite a mature response, really, quite a nuanced response, I think, from most fans. Often when a player leaves a club, it's like, well, they're persona non grata, the relationship bridges are burned and things like that. I think in this case, there's such a depth of feeling around Emile that, as sad as people are to see him leave, they're also pleased for him that he's taking this necessary step in his career. And I think it helps, actually, that the deal is a decent one. I think if Emile was going for 15 million, I think it'd be a very different reaction.
Of course, yeah.
So what is it with 27 with 7 in add-ons? Obviously, neither of us remember what we predicted.
Absolutely not.
No idea. But
no idea.
I feel like that might be in excess of what we imagined.
I think it is. I think we might have said 20 or
2025.
25, something like that. Yeah.
So for a deal that could total 34 million, it places him right up there with Oxlade-Chamberlain, Alex Iwobi as kind of the biggest Arsenal sales. I'm really fascinated to see how he'll get on. And what's been quite nice about the tour as well is you see somebody like Ranieri blossoming and threatening to break into the first team. Sometimes you have to create space for those players.
Exactly, yeah. They need the room to make that pathway. And it's sad and it's unfortunate because I think everyone listening, and Emile Smith Rowe, the thing we all would have wanted was for him to have the kind of career at Arsenal that it looked like he might be able to have. But, when it went a different way, you have to be realistic and you have to make tough decisions, and he has to make a tough decision. I think ultimately as well, I think this was a decision that Smith Rowe made. It wasn't just about Arsenal saying, right, we want to sell you so we can get money in. I think Smith Rowe made that decision himself for the good of his own career, and you have to respect that.
Absolutely. And, I think it's a deal that suits everyone, to be honest.
Yeah.
You don't get many of those in football.
No.
But right now, it looks like something that makes sense for all parties.
So I don't think anything else is going to happen in the next couple of days because there's obviously the game tomorrow and everyone, I think, from Arsenal goes back pretty quickly after the game to continue the preseason preparation.
They're straight out, aren't they? On the plane?
Yeah, basically, yeah. They're off the pitch and on the plane and back home. So there won't be anything happening, I don't think, in the next couple of days. But we'll have to wait and see what else Edu's got cooking.
Exactly, yeah. See what he's lining up for the grill. Barbecue season is upon us.
Yeah.
And I think as well, naturally we talk about incomings, but I think that applies to outgoings as well. We've spoken about people like Reece, people like Eddie, who I think knew they were required for this tour, but maybe we might see interest in them developing a bit further when they get back.
Yeah.
And that will have a knock-on effect in terms of incomings too. So, where are we? We're just heading into August, so about 4 weeks left of the window.
Yeah.
And I think, speaking in general terms, I think it's going to be busy. And I think at Arsenal, I think we'll see some turnover too. I don't think at this point in the window we're going to see another 3 or 4 signings, who are like big first team level players. I think it's going to be 1 or 2 really in my mind.
I agree. I think the midfield signing is probably the next one.
Yeah.
And then I think if there are the departures of Eddie, maybe, and Reece Nelson, then I think you have to add something to the forward line, and that will be a very interesting one. I think we've talked about that before, so we don't need to go into it again. But beyond that, I really don't see any further incoming business unless some kind of opportunity presents itself, which can happen in a window that a club, has the chance to bring in a player that they might like because, the snowball effect of a transfer here, there, or, I do wonder if Arsenal might be in the market if something like that happens, but that's just a guess. I don't know what it might be or who it might be.
Or if there's an unexpected sale, if somebody did turn up with some cash for Thomas Partey, for example, that could, I think, see a knock on, because Arsenal know at some point they need to rejuvenate the midfield. They've got Jorginho there, they've got Partey there. If that opportunity presented itself this summer, I think the club would probably do it, but at present, that doesn't feel like something that's imminent. No.
So I don't know what else is happening. I'm quite detached from the online world, so I don't really know
what people are upset about.
It's great. It really is, I have to say.
No, I mean, nor I. It's sort of quite a narrow focus while we're here, and sort of everyone, all the big decision makers from Arsenal are here as well. So they're quite limited in terms of sort of what what can develop. But yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing the training pics as well from when we get back. You know, Bukayo Saka, Declan Rice, the two goalkeepers will be joining up.
William Saliba
as well.
Yeah.
How did I forget? So, and then they go on to play, is it 2 friendlies next week at the Emirates Stadium?
That's right, yeah. And I think there are still some tickets available, but not too many left.
Oh, really? Wow.
Just talking to somebody from Arsenal last night about that. The tickets are going well.
That's really cool.
And given how difficult it is to get tickets during the season, it is an opportunity for fans who maybe don't get to go normally
families
to get along, families and, you know, kids getting their first taste of an Arsenal game at the Emirates. So
in a relatively affordable way.
Yeah, and I think it'll be, you know, as preseason goes on, the intensity of the games goes up a bit, and what Mikel Arteta will demand of his players in those games probably goes up a bit. You know, you're probably not necessarily playing within yourself, but you're probably easing your way into a season with these games out here. Like, it's not, you're never going to go like 100% hell for leather for 90 minutes. You have to be more cognizant of the physical impact. And I think out here as well, maybe more than LA, Los Angeles, it's very, very warm.
Very warm and very
humid here, and I think that will probably have an effect on the players. Like, they took a water break or a hydration break, as the stadium announcer in LA Galaxy Stadium said. But I don't know that they necessarily needed it. Yeah. Whereas I think here, given how hot and humid it is, they are probably going to need that.
Yeah, it's oppressive city heat. You know, it's a whole other thing. No sea breeze. It's a whole other thing entirely. So yeah, that will be interesting. I do think that the teams will just grow more and more competitive as the preseason wears on. Mm-hmm. And what will be interesting will be like, is there anything that emerges tactically that hangs around?
Yes.
You know, I remember being in America 2 years ago, and Ben White was filling in as a right back.
Yeah.
And here we are 2 years on, and that's basically where he's played every single available minute.
Yeah.
I do wonder, will there be anything like that, you know, we see carried into the season? If I had to say one right now, it does feel like, you know, maybe Ethan Ranieri's involvement in the squad would be kind of the big takeaway.
The big thing so far, but yeah, other things can and will emerge. I mean, we might as well just call it quits, I think, and get this out there. I did just want to ask you one thing, going back to the Man United game and the penalty shootout.
Oh, yeah.
Were you a little surprised that Eddie didn't take a penalty?
I was, yeah.
Yeah.
I was, because he's a goal scorer. He's taken a ton of penalties at youth level and with England's 21s.
Yeah.
What?
I mean, I'm not reading anything massive into it. I just thought it was a bit surprising given the players that were on the pitch.
I mean, it's pure speculation from me, but if the point of the penalties is to lend a competitive advantage to our players, you know, if they have to step up in a shootout next season, maybe there was a decision of like, well, perhaps Eddie's not going to be here.
Yeah. We're not training him up for some other team.
Exactly, yeah. For him to score a penalty against us. Maybe that was in the thinking. I don't know. I did find it a little bit odd.
Yeah.
Especially when you see a guy like Jakub Kiwior. I know he scored against Bournemouth, but not a natural finisher.
Jakub Kiwior, not as big as you think.
Yeah. Don't let him hear you say that.
No. I mean, if I'll go down the lift tomorrow morning for breakfast, and he'll pound me.
So what should we do? I mean, creep around the hotel with cups on door walls. You know,
that sounds like a good idea. Yeah.
Or just go up and down the elevator, waiting for footballers of varying heights to get in, so that we can measure them.
And then just sort of stand there, going, "Oh, I'm so."
The elevator doors open, and Andrew and I are just stood there with a tape measure, welcoming these teenage athletes into the lift.
You're the tallest one so far.
Yeah,
well done. You win a prize. Yeah. Jesus.
Well, we'll go do that.
Yeah, let's do that then. Let's do that. Perfectly normal behaviour from two grown men.
And we will see some of you later on today.
Yes.
If you're
World Cafe Live.
Live at the Cafe of the World.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll see many more of you tomorrow at the game.
At the game and around. And do say hi if you spot us around.
I'll be the guy in the duck mask.
Yeah. Can we tell the story about the sea?
Oh, yeah, we can talk about the sea.
Yeah, so on Sunday, James came out to where we were staying, and we went to the beach and had a good swim and pounded around by the waves.
Marveled at
lovely.
the awesome power of the ocean.
Yes, very, very. The ocean, much bigger than you think.
It is, yeah.
But at one point, in order to continue the theme of taking a picture with a duck mask on in places where you wouldn't normally expect to see a man with a duck mask, like US immigration, James got into the sea, and I took a picture of him with his duck mask on. You got some looks from some of the people around.
The lovely thing is, I couldn't tell because I can't see out of that mask at all. And a big wave did come and knock me over, and the latex mask sort of filled with salt water. So it was like having your head in a sort of salty fish bowl.
Wonderful.
The duck, not traditionally a seafaring creature.
No.
But, you know, evolution,
apart from
guys.
sea ducks.
Yeah, sea ducks.
The sea ducks that you get.
But, you know, it's harder to be embarrassed when you can't see anyone else.
Yes, that's true.
It's probably more embarrassing for you, actually.
I wouldn't get at all embarrassed by that.
Okay.
Not at all.
Okay,
You know,
thanks.
it's just a perfectly reasonable thing to do is take a picture of your friend in the sea wearing a duck mask.
But a good time was had by all.
Yeah.
Elliot was bodyboarding?
Boogie boarding.
Boogie boarding.
Yeah.
I'm not ever sure of what the distinction is there, but
Bodyboarding is when you kill someone and then hollow them out, fill them with insulated foam, and use their body to ride the waves into.
Sorry, that's what
the
he was
shore.
doing the day before.
That's
I get it
it.
mixed up.
Yeah. He wasn't boogieing though, to be fair, but he was skimming along the sea like a small child.
Release the footage. No, don't. And don't release the footage of my penalties at the Emirates either.
No.
There's a big embargo on that.
Yeah. All right. Well, look, we will leave it there for now. As ever, thank you very much for listening. Like we said, we will see some of you later on. Because of travel and all that kind of stuff, there isn't going to be an Arsecast on Friday. I'm going to take just a couple of days off to myself before heading back to Dublin on Saturday. I get in overnight, arrive at some time crazy on Sunday morning, and then we will do an Arsecast extra for you early next week. We'll figure out the logistics of that, but make sure we get you a podcast nice and early next week to listen to. So for now, take it easy. Enjoy the game later or on Wednesday if you're going, and we will catch you on the next one.
Bye-bye.